you can see them all along the road. And if you're not careful, they're right there at you.
On a statewide basis, it's certainly one of the sections of highway in the state that has some of the highest collision rates with big game.
It's very rare to drive this stretch of road late at night or in early morning and not see animals right next to the road or in the road.
In some sections of this highway, we're looking at an average over a 10-year period of up to 6 collisions per mile per year.
We all know people at work that have struck animals. I personally haven't, but I've come close to it.
They ignore the signs. I mean, I think they're aware of all the elk up in here, they just ignore them. They think it's not going to happen to them, that's what it is.
And of course, the worst case scenario with a collision with an elk is that that animal will come in the windshield. Then you're talking about potential for death.
This is just now being realized and dealt with worldwide right now as a significant issue. That is wildlife vehicle collision from a safety point of view, human health, and also from the conservation side. It takes a devastating toll of wildlife.
A week or two ago, a semi took out somewhere around 9 or 10 of these animals at one time.
You look at the amount of traffic that's coming up and going up towards the Mogollon Rim, and that's what started the project, is for the safety of the public, is to get more lanes out here so they can travel up to the rim more efficiently. And with that, the next thing is you've got to start looking at how also to make them safe, because we know specifically in this area that we have a lot of elk.
As we upgrade the highway, and this highway is being built for a very high speed standard, we're increasing potentially people's speed, certainly making it a risky proposition in terms of the potential to have a collision with an elk or a deer.
It's been through Game and Fish that we've determined that elk do like to use the drainage areas, and so ADOT came to the table with Game and Fish input, and we decided to build an overpass at this location.
Where's the camera, Jeff?
Camera's over there.
Okay, oh, there it is.
After the sun sets and darkness falls, most normal photography requires a light, like the one that's on me right now. But elk are generally shy and stay away from a bright light, so we turn our light off. But you can still see me because the camera that we have installed out here uses infrared technology. And wait till you see the pictures we get of wildlife walking through here in total darkness.
Right here we've got some elk that are coming down the draw towards the underpass.
What we're doing with the camera systems is trying to get a handle on two major things. One would be the rates of passage of wildlife as they approach the underpasses.
So here's an elk approaching the underpass. It's kind of hesitant looking at the highway, and the underpass is over here. If you look at it from long distance, this is looking through the underpass. It's way up here in the corner.
Of the animals that come down the drainages towards the underpasses, how many that want to cross ultimately do cross? Secondly, as we're evaluating the behavior that the animals exhibit as they're doing that. And we've got one underpass where the animals pass through that structure fairly readily. The other one that's much more of a tunnel effect, they exhibit a lot of resistance, and in fact we have a lot of failed crossings where the animals, you know, they go part way through and then they decide to flee the area.
This one's kind of got a tunnel effect to it, which makes these animals, you know, they could be a little more hesitant to it versus a wide open structure. That's what we want to see.
The lighting is a very important component. If we don't have good lighting, we're not going to get good data.
Generally, in this situation, we have 4 cameras and about a dozen infrared lights, and we have infrared triggers which kick on a VCR which starts recording when animals come into the areas. There's a total of, I think, 11 sets of these bridges for the animals to cross the highway along 17-mile stretch of highway.
We're getting most of our passages through the underpasses roughly between 1:30 and 2:30 in the morning. The bottom line with ADOT is they want to know if these structures are indeed, one, reducing the collision rate, and two, are they achieving their objective of getting animals to cross the highway under the underpasses.
Typically here, ADOT or Arizona Department of Transportation would just build a box culvert for the drainage areas.
One of the good things about the box culvert is that it's relatively inexpensive and easier to install. But there's not much room for me to move through, much less a big elk.
think a box culvert in this area might have been about $500,000 when each one of these bridges here would be $1 million each. So you're talking about ADOT coming up with an additional $2 million for each wildlife crossing versus a box culvert of maybe $500,000. It is an increased cost, but you really can't put a figure on the safety of a human being.
Not only are we conducting research to evaluate all the various measures that ADOT is implementing along the highway, but we're also actively involved with ADOT and the Forest Service in what we call an adaptive management component. When we're out here actively working with them, modifying these structures.
The funding comes partly from them, so they want to see what's going on out here and to possibly provide future funding to continue to do this kind of research.
I'm really very much impressed. Yeah, I have looked at what's going on here, what the work, how much work has been done, and I feel there's a very good work going on, and I like what I see.
It's going to grow up to be like that tree there with the camera on it eventually. We've always been interested in making sure that the connectivity between habitats occurs with highway construction. It'll come up and it'll provide the cover that the animal wishes to see. That's a big thing with the Forest Service, is that we want the animals to be able to move freely from various portions of the habitat, and not just the elk. These passages also work for all the deer and small mammals that use this area. So it's very important for us to get that connectivity in this area.
They need to have that visual opening. We can build the underpass and we'll get some wildlife use, but to funnel animals towards the underpasses and make them most effective, we need to use fencing or some other measures to, if you will, force the animals to the underpasses.
There is a fence there. It's very hard to see. Most people, I don't think, even notice it's there.
You can see a few lights that are set up. There's a camera, a camera on a pole you can see, but other than that, you have VCRs and multiplexers, and these are hidden to where you can't see them. The cameras are fairly well camouflaged. Most people don't even know they're there, even when you try and point them out to them.
And we feel like we've done our job if they don't know what we've done out here.
You capture them by setting up, in this case, we set up these clover traps, and these elk will come around and they'll walk in there and grab the hay and trip the wire, and the door shuts down. And then we'll come, as soon as we can and get a collar on the animal so we can get it out as quickly as possible. You want to see if these animals are crossing the highway and where they're crossing the highway, how many times they cross the highway. So the collars, they send signals constantly, every couple hours, and tell us where these animals are going. So you can look back at the data on these collars and you can see how many times the animals cross the highway over the period of time that the collar was on, and see where they like to cross the most, and whether they're using some of these corridors. You can actually pinpoint where some of these elk are going. The data is so accurate on these collars. You can see how many times this animal has crossed the road.
We're just gaining a lot of extra knowledge here, and with that knowledge we can be more efficient and hopefully keep more and more elk off the highway and keep the strikes from happening.
They had to put a new hood on it, new window. A couple came in here about 1:30 in the morning. They had hit an elk. The police brought them in. They'd hit an elk and damaged the whole top of the car. The gentleman was going to junk it, so my husband bought it for $100 and had it fixed up, so that's our car now.
There's a lot left to be done out here, and I know that we have some additional research needs to exactly determine what is going on out here. But I think we've taken some tremendous steps forward in the state, and we have to congratulate ADOT and Game and Fish for working so well together to achieve this.
I hope when we are all done, we'll find ways first to improve on what we have, to find what best works, and then to keep on those and to see what doesn't work, and leave those behind.
Traffic rates on this section of highway are anticipated to grow continually into the foreseeable future. And we want to be able to have a situation where people can drive highways and still have that resource. Some people look at this simplistically and think we should get rid of the elk. And then we've had people say that to us. Well, why do we even have to have the elk here if they're that big of risk? Well, the elk are just one element of our natural resources here. And as we know, there's a lot of recreation and a lot of value associated with those animals. So what we're trying to find here is that common ground where we have safe highways and can have viable populations of wildlife.